When you face a moment of disruption, there are two ways you can respond to that. One is by opening up, embracing the unknown, and connecting with the emerging future. And the other one is closing down and holding on to what we already know. This interplay between these two responses, the interplay between presencing, sensing and actualizing the emerging future, and absencing, disconnecting ourselves from the emerging future and holding on to the patterns of the past. This interplay is really at the essence of our present time. It's really kind of the major drama, you could say, that's playing out collectively, but also within each of us. And that's what we call the interplay between presencing and absencing. And that's what this clip is about. And it wraps up the 7-point summary that I started to give to you in the first week with the first 6 points by adding this 7th point. All of this, everything that we have said so far, in reality is only half the story. And what this first half of the story really says is, yes, certainly we know there is the space of emergence. And it has to do, so when the new is coming into being, it has to do with our capacity to cultivate the open mind, the open heart, and the open will. And we know kind of that this is happening where something new is really coming into being. And we and you know many examples of that. That is true. But when we look into real reality, we also know that this is really only half of the story that's in reality playing out, and the political reality of our institutions and systems today. And the other part of the story actually has to do with the inversion of this process. It has to do not with the process of presencing, but with the process of absencing. And while this space is kind of the economics of emergence, where something new is coming into being, this is really about kind of the space where social pathology, where the space of destruction is happening. And the key principles here are, rather than being organized around the power of the open mind, it's getting stuck in one truth. And rather than organizing around the power of empathy, the open heart, it's getting stuck in one collective skin, getting stuck in one definition of us versus them. And rather than embracing kind of the capacity of open will, which is kind of letting go and letting come, this one is getting stuck in holding on to one rigid definition of will and self, often in a fanatical way. So when you see a social system that is organized around these 3 principles, what do you call it? So what do we call this phenomenon? Stuck in one truth, stuck in one collective skin, stuck in one rigid definition or fanatical definition of will and self. That's what we call fundamentalism. And there are many forms of fundamentalism today, kind of where this rigidity is playing through, not only religious, not only throughout the various religions really that we have, but also kind of through the other social systems. So that is a major story that's playing out today. And it's not true that this is the only story playing out. This is kind of the major drama of our time, or battle of our time, you could say, that is not only happening around us, but it's also happening within us. So as you move into this cycle of absencing, rather than moving into suspension and seeing something with fresh eyes, this is about blinding and denial, kind of not really facing the reality that's happening around us. And rather than redirecting and sensing, kind of empathizing with others around us, we are entrenching and desensing. So we are kind of increasing the thickness of the wall between us and others by dehumanizing them, by not empathizing with them. And rather than letting go and letting come or presencing, here we are kind of moving into holding on the old and absencing. In any kind of system that is going through these two major changes, which is basically disconnecting horizontally to what's going on around you, and also disconnecting vertically with the sources of your emerging future self. Whenever that happens to a system, the result is destruction. Pathology and destruction. First destroying others, and in the end destroying yourself. In the book Theory U, I give the example of Hitler Germany and kind of Hitler's inner circle as an extreme version of this cycle of destruction, kind of disconnect and then destroying others, destroying yourself. But the reality is that in the 21st century, so this is not limited to 20th century or Hitler, the Hitler example, but it does play out on a much larger scale today. And in fact, and when you say, so I say, my experience of current reality is that it even plays out within us, which means one moment I can be here, and we all have experiences. Most of us really have lots of experiences here. Often these experiences are face-to-face. It's small group, kind of where we are able to connect with others in new ways. Kind of all of us have lots of experiences here. But then, before we know, we lose it and we become part of the story here, not only interpersonally, but also on a collective level. We collectively enact results that no one wants in the form of destroying our planet, the ecological divide, in the form of an ever-increasing gap between haves and have-nots, and in the form of the spiritual divide, all of which kind of we mentioned in the earlier weeks. So that's collectively we create results that no one wants. We participate on a global scale here while interpersonally also dwelling kind of in this space. That's what current reality is about, the fragility of that. One moment I'm here and then I'm losing it and find myself thrown here. What does it mean? It means, so what is it we can do about that? If social reality today is really the interplay and characterized by the fragility that one moment I can be here, the next moment I can be here, what is it that I can do about? Two things that I would suggest as a starting point. The first one is paying attention to your attention. Paying attention to your attention, what is that? It's, remember kind of the astronaut clip, it's turning around the camera and beginning to seeing yourself, monitoring yourself. Am I kind of dwelling in this space? Or am I stuck in the patterns of the past? Because what does it mean to get thrown here? It means that when I am facing a situation in my life, or kind of as a team or as an organization, that invites me to suspend, to redirect, to let go. And yet, rather than doing that, I keep downloading, holding on to the patterns of the past. Then that's the mechanism that throws me unintentionally into this space. So the first practice is pay attention to your attention. Are you operating here, or maybe unintentionally are you thrown into this space? And when you notice that you are thrown into this space, just bring yourself back on track. Don't, waste your energy on beating up on yourself and blaming yourself or others or feel bad about that. That's all a waste of energy. Just move yourself back on track, realign your attention with your intention. And secondly, and that's maybe kind of another way to wrap up kind of this summary here. Secondly, experience is not what happens to us. experience is what we do with what happens to us. So experience is not what happens to us, but experience is what we do with what happens to us. What is? So when we begin to pay attention to your attention, when we turn around the camera, what is it that we are seeing? What is it that we are doing or not doing with that, what happens to us? That's what we are doing. So we can suspend our old habits of judgment. That's kind of one level. We can redirect and begin to see a situation that I'm facing through the eyes of the other stakeholders I'm dealing with. And I can, when I'm facing certain situations, I can let go of my old rigid identities and attention and open up and embrace the space of the unknown. Experience is not what happens to us. Experience is what we do with what happens to us, is inviting us to explore these capacities of leadership as gateways to the deeper level of our own experience. And the more we get stuck in the surface level of our experience, the more we are in danger to get thrown into this space in the moment that we face a situation of disruption.